Breaking. Celtics plan trade for playoff-tested center. Shocking new destination. If you're a Celtics fan, or simply tired of seeing this team hit the goalposts in the playoffs, this video is for you. Today, we're going to talk about a possible exchange that could finally solve that old problem in the bottle. Lack of a solid pivot, ready to make a decision. I'll show you who the target is, why this move could change the course of the season, and what it means for our title dreams. Let's go! Before we get into the details of this possible exchange, quickly, if you breathe the NBA and suffer from the Celtics like me, subscribe to the channel now, because here every rumor, analysis, and behind-the-scenes bombshell comes to you firsthand. Enjoy and leave a like because this shows YouTube that you enjoy this type of content and helps me bring more videos like this. Already activate the bell so you don't miss any market news, okay? Now let's get straight to what matters. Who is this hulking center? What's behind this trade and how it could change the Celtics' future in the playoffs? Follow me until the end, because there are important details that no one is commenting on. When we look at the Boston Celtics today, it's impossible not to recognize how hard the team has worked to keep the center position working. It's not something brilliant, it's not that dominant figure that marks an era, but it's a sector that has been sustained based on delivery, size, and a cast of players who have embraced the role they have in their hands. Neemias Queta is perhaps the clearest symbol of this. He didn't arrive as a star. He wasn't treated like a big name. But, little by little, he was gaining ground with serious defense, positioning, and discipline. An elite defensive rating does not appear by chance. This is the result of reading the game, contesting shots, knowing when to get up on stump and when to just occupy the right space. It's the kind of contribution that doesn't often make headlines, but that coaches deeply value. Alongside him, Luka Garza brings something different. Sensitivity in attack, good touch close to the basket, understanding of angles and spaces. He's not the most athletic center in the league, but he makes up for it with intelligence, especially in the half-court. Chris Boucher and Xavier Tillman complement this group with constant energy, aggressive rebounding, the ability to change the dynamics of a game with those small plays that rarely appear in the box score, but change the sequence of a match. A good defensive help, a block at the right time, a well-made light screen that opens an infiltration line. This set of pieces has fulfilled an important mission, keeping Boston organized even when Jayson Tatum is absent. While the big star recovers from Achilles tendon surgery, the team can't just stop and wait. The pivots have helped hold the structure together, allowing the coaching staff to have reliable minutes on the court, night after night. But here comes an essential point of our conversation. All of this is enough for a competitive regular season. However, when we talk about playoffs, 7 games, series-by-series adjustments, facing the best in the world over and over again, the demands go up a notch. And that's where the Celtics' current center rotation starts to look less like the foundation of a title contender and more like an excellent support unit. In other words, Boston has a lot of useful quantity, but has not yet found that specific quality in position 5 that becomes a reference. The type of pivot that you look at and say, this is the player we're going to fight for the title with, big game after big game. While Tatum works to get back into top shape, the team continues to rely on some well-defined pillars: tactical structure, spacing on the court, and creation on the perimeter. Jaylen Brown and Derrick White take on much of the offensive load, moving the opposing defense, exploiting mismatches, and finding three-pointers at pace. This style of play makes the presence of a reliable center even more important because he needs to be, at the same time, a point of defensive security and an offensive piece that does not disrupt the flow. It is in this context that the name of Daniel Gafford appears. We're not talking about a superstar, and that is fundamental. Gafford is not enough to compete for protagonism with Brown or Tatum, nor to demand volume of the ball. What makes this fit so interesting is just the opposite. It fits into the design that Boston already has, without asking the team to change its identity. When we look at what Gafford has delivered, it becomes clear why he appears to be a realistic target. He was a starter in a long playoff campaign, reaching the finals, something that weighs heavily when evaluating a player for a squad with title ambitions. He has already shown that he can handle the tension of decisive games. He has been in series where every possession counts. In terms of number arrows, he produces points and rebounds in just a few minutes on the court, which reveals efficiency. But more than the numbers, there is the practical impact. He protects the rim, contests shots close to the basket, is a constant target on aerial jumps, and fits very well into structured schemes. Think about how Boston likes to play. Creation on the perimeter, extra passes, taking advantage of three-pointers, attacks based on advantages created by the wingers and guards. A center like Gafford doesn't need to receive the ball to create from scratch. He needs to occupy space well, go up for the pick and roll, seal the marker inside the box, and be ready to finish. This he already does, and he does it consistently. Now imagine a quintet made up of Peyton Pritchard, Derrick White, Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum, and Daniel Gafford. It's a formation that makes sense on all sides of the court. Offensively, you have 4 players capable of shooting from outside, hitting inside, and making decisions with the ball. Defensively, there is length, the ability to exchange markings, and a pivot that protects the rim. It is not a training that requires genius to function. It works because it is logical, balanced, and predictable in a good way. You know what each person delivers. Boston doesn't desperately need a center who wants to be the team's star. You need someone to strengthen the structure that already exists. A player who stabilizes the ball, who does the simple things with quality, and who has the maturity to understand his own role. Daniel Gafford fits this profile exactly. But how could he make it to the Celtics? This is where the proposed exchange between 3 teams that has been discussed comes into play. In short, the idea is this. Boston sends Anfernee Simons, who currently represents a valuable and expiring contract, and receives Daniel Gafford. In the process, the Mavericks and Nets also move, with important names moving from one side to the other, future draft picks being traded, and money involved to balance the financial equation. You don't need to get caught up in every detail of the exchange engineering. The essential thing is to understand the reasoning behind it. From the Celtics' point of view, the logic is clear. Simons is talented, has value in the league, but is not a perfect fit for the style of play that the team wants to consolidate. His profile is more focused on scoring and creating with the ball in his hands, something that, in Boston, is already closely linked to Brown, Tatum, and even White at certain times. Furthermore, with the team operating close to salary restrictions, thinking about renewing it in the long term becomes a challenge. When you put these factors together, the idea of turning a valuable but difficult-to-keep contract into a player who fills a clear need in the squad starts to make sense. Gafford is not enough to create a new offensive dynamic or completely change the defensive identity. He arrives to reinforce what Boston already does well, without hindering future flexibility. It is important to highlight this. The change is not about changing the team from start to finish. It's about giving more clarity to a position that, today, is supported by effort and depth, but lacks a stable reference. The Celtics' current centers have value, and no one is being disrespected here. The point is that when looking at a team's title window, you need to be extremely objective. And at this moment, position 5 remains the most vulnerable point in the structure. Now, it's worth asking, is Daniel Gafford the ideal 10-year solution? That's probably not how the Boston Celtics need to look at this decision. The most important question is not whether he will be a pillar of the franchise in the long term, but whether he is the right kind of solution for the team's current situation. With Brown and White supporting the defensive and offensive identity alongside Tatum, and with a squad already shaped to compete immediately, betting on a center that guarantees stability today may be more valuable than looking for a player with greater potential, but with more uncertainty. In a playoff scenario, the predictability that Gafford offers, knowing that he will protect the rim, that he will fulfill the tactical role, that he will not require offensive protagonism, could be worth much more than a theoretical package of maybe if it works out. Another point that cannot be ignored is the emotional and symbolic impact within the locker room. When a franchise makes a clear move to solidify a sector that everyone there knows needs to improve, the message becomes direct. We are committed to fighting for the title now. This reinforces the cast's confidence, shows the core that the board is attentive and willing to act, and creates the feeling that every detail is being refined. On Gafford's side, there is also a very relevant human aspect. Arriving at a team with the culture of the Celtics, with a tradition of titles, with a demanding and passionate fan base, is a huge step in any player's career. He had the opportunity to establish himself as a starter in a squad that arrives among the favorites every year. What's more, it could consolidate itself as the piece that offers the stability that the team was looking for in the big box. For the fan, the reflection is inevitable. Is it worth giving up a talented player like Anthony Simons to bring in a pivot with a more worker profile, albeit an efficient one? The answer depends on how you see the franchise moment. If the absolute priority is to make the most of Brown and Tatum's window, each move needs to be thought of in terms of how much closer does this get us to a title. And from this perspective, a reliable pivot can make more of a difference than an extra scorer on the perimeter. Ultimately, Daniel Gafford isn't the kind of name that changes a team's ceiling by itself. It doesn't automatically make the Celtics the clear favorite in the league. However, it makes the structure more logical, reduces insecurities in pivot rotation, and simplifies everyone's life on the court. And in a high-level sport, it is often this sum of discrete adjustments that defines who lifts the trophy up front. Boston has already shown that it can get by with the current pivot rotation. It has already proven that effort, discipline, and depth can hold the line for a long time. But if the intention is to take the next step, the one that separates a good team from a champion, the clarity at position 5 could be exactly the kind of detail that cannot be ignored. If the Celtics choose to solidify the big box with Daniel Gafford, they won't just be filling a vacancy. They will be explicitly assuming that they are willing to make the necessary adjustments so that the structure, the squad, and the moment move in the same direction, that of a team that doesn't just want to compete. You want to conquer. And to achieve this, each position on the court needs to be aligned with this objective. So if this exchange actually happens, the message is clear. The Boston Celtics are no longer playing contender. He's embracing the idea of being a champion now. A center like Daniel Gafford may not grace the covers, but he is exactly the type of piece that, in May and June, separates those who dream from those who lift the trophy. And now I want to hear from you. Does it make sense to give up Simons for this stability in the bottle? Would you accept this movement, or are you waiting for an even bigger name? Comment your opinion below, because I read everything and this helps a lot to increase the level of debate on the channel. If you've made it this far, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell, because there's still a lot for us to discover about this team. And, as soon as you finish this video, go to the Celtics Analyses playlist, which will be in the pinned comment. There, I delve into other possible changes, tactical adjustments, rotations, and everything that could change the future of the franchise. Click on the playlist, stay with me there, and we will continue to follow, step by step, whether these Celtics are really ready to take the next step towards the title.